Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tippecanoe County. My name is Janice Teal, and I'm a member of the Worship Committee. Whether you are a member, a longtime friend, a newcomer, or a visitor, I hope this time will be full of meaning for you. I have a few brief announcements. Consider donating items or services for our upcoming virtual service auction. Online bidding runs from March 21st to 27th and ends with a Zoom party on the 27th. Our program council coordinates social, cultural, educational, and recreational programs for the church. Everyone is invited to attend, but we especially invite committee chairs and board members. This is the single best way to find out what's happening in the church. The Program Council will meet next Tuesday, March 2nd at 7 p.m. Every Wednesday at noon, you're invited to lunch with Reverend Rosemary on Zoom. Bring your questions, concerns, and of course your lunch. Today is the last day for the 50/50 fundraiser at Crew Car Wash in West Lafayette. Sign up online. They're open until 7 o'clock tonight. And lastly, we will have a live coffee and conversation session after this service in the same Zoom room.
Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church here in West Lafayette, Indiana. It is my pleasure and honor to serve this wonderful congregation as the interim minister for a few more months. Because this is Bring a Friend Sunday, I wanted to share with you a little bit about what happens at a Unitarian Universalist Church Sunday service or worship service, whatever you're comfortable with calling it. So it's kind of the same as any other Protestant type liberal faith church. We sing some hymns, we light some candles, we have a message and a time for children and a benediction, and so we kind of do all of these things together. The difference between our congregation or our denomination and, say, a Presbyterian congregation or Methodist is that they might light a Christ candle. And we instead light a chalice, which is the symbol of our faith. And the chalice is a combination of a flame and a cup and was developed by Hans Deutsch during the Second World War. He was an Austrian, and he was commissioned to create a symbol for refugees that were being served by the Unitarian Service Committee during World War II in Czechoslovakia and in Austria. So the cup, something that we can drink out of, and the flame, that which warms us. And from the UUA, it states, Unitarian Universalists today have many different interpretations of the flaming chalice, including the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. And each congregation kind of does a different take on the chalice. Here is one, this is our logo here at this congregation. And here is the Canadian logo that includes our chalice. And you can see right above me here, there's also a chalice. And soon our worship associate, Janice Teal, will light a chalice. And we usually light it with chalice lighting words. And after we do that, we will say our covenant together. So another big difference between a Unitarian Universalist church and, say, other Protestant denominations or liberal faith denominations is that we do not have any creed So there's nothing that we actually believe in, we all believe in. So rather than having a creed, we have a covenant. So we are a covenantal community, not a creedal community. So we make promises to one another that inform us as to how we are to be when we are together and when we are apart. So that's just a little bit of an introduction into this service, a welcoming to you if you are a newcomer or a back from a long time being away person. I want you to know you're really welcome here, and I'm so glad that you are here. We open up our hearts and our minds and our arms, if we could, and give you a hug of welcome. And I would really like to say that sometimes we go to church and we think, oh man, you know what? I just have to hide that part of me. I don't want them to know that I'm dyslexic, or that, I'm starting to wonder if I'm not gender fluid or even trans or maybe gay. And I haven't really talked to anybody about that. And sometimes I overeat, and sometimes I drink a little bit too much, or there's just all these kinds of things, or we procrastinate. There's just so many things about us that we might not be proud of. And there's a million things about us that we are proud of and that we can be proud of. And I want to say that even those things that you think you shouldn't be proud of, they are part of you. And those parts of you are welcome here. We want you, all of you, to come and be nourished and be held and be loved and be welcomed. So come, let us worship together, all of us, all of our parts, together.
Our chalice lighting words are by Scott Taylor. In the name of all that leans down and helps us up. We light this flame in honor of all that leads us forward, all that leans down and helps us up after we fall, all that reminds us why we started, all that reminds us there is still hope and seeds of surprise, even when no lights are in sight, even when warmth seems so far away. May this hour of tender and courageous connection help us fall in love again with this wild world. May it reignite our trust that the path ahead will be gentle. May it tempt us back to joy. May it leave us dancing to the lure of emerging light. Now please join in the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now join Hilary Noel with the hymn, Gather the Spirit.
Good morning. This song is number 347, titled Gather in Peace.
Gather church family. Before I read the story today, I have a question for you. How many of you love superheroes? Me. Today, the book is about superheroes. It's called Even Superheroes Make Mistakes. It's written by Shelley Becker and illustrated by Etta Caban. So, before I read, you might want to go get your superhero cape on, and let's get started. Even Superheroes Make Mistakes by Shelley Becker, illustrated by Etta Caban, published by Sterling Children's Books. When superheroes are not up to speed, when they slip up and trip up and fail to succeed, they could cry or deny or claim it's not fair or rip off their capes and quit in despair. If they bake super cakes with way too much salt, they could shrug, "It was bakery bought, not my fault." If they bungle their speech at the hero convention, they could put on a light show, diverting attention. If they space out and nab the wrong guys without thought, they could choose to let bandits succeed with their plot. But ashamed superheroes who goofed up somehow first stop and consider what's best to do now. If they wake up late for boot camp the very first day, they invent an alarm clock that works right away. If last year they ruined the annual choir, they train screechy voices and learn how to sing higher. If they didn't prepare any clean clothes to wear, they still polish their boots and spiff up their hair. But if superheroes can't take their errors in stride, they might look for a way to excuse, blame, or hide. If they bash through the planets while flying in space, they could claim someone's cape was obstructing their face. If they build a big bridge that doesn't sit right, they could blame and call names, a supercharged fight. If their rescue attempt was not super clever, they could stock up supplies and hide out forever. When superheroes are not up to speed, when they slip up and trip up and fail to succeed, they could hang their heads down. They could, but they don't, because real superheroes just wouldn't. They won't. Instead, they remember perfection is rare, and they choose super ways to respond when they err. And using their powers as true heroes do, they fix what they wrecked and apologize too. They fess up their mess up. They learn from their blooper. Responsibility. That's what makes them super. It's okay if they blush. It's okay if they quake. It's okay if they super regret their mistake. But then they get up and get on with their day. saving the world in their most super way.
In the state of Alabama, during the early 60s and the mid 60s, there were several 100,000 of black people of voting age, but very few were registered to vote. As a matter of fact, in the heart of the Black Belt, in Selma, a small town in Alabama, that had only about 2.1% of the black people of voting age registered in 1965. Today in Selma, more than 70% of the blacks of voting age are registered to vote, and 5 members of a 10-member city council happen to be black. In Greene County, Alabama, during the early 60s, very few blacks were registered, but today that county is controlled by black. The highest elected official of the county is a young man, Thomas Gilmore, who is the sheriff.
Stand up and make good trouble. Speak up and make good trouble. Get up and make good trouble. Rise up and make good trouble. Stand up and make good trouble. Speak up and make good trouble. Get up and make good trouble. Rise up and make good trouble. Stand up and make good trouble. Speak up and make good trouble. Get up and make good trouble. Rise up and make good trouble. Never be afraid to make some noise. Make some noise. Never ever be afraid to make some noise. Make some noise. Never
This is the struggle of a lifetime.
Make some noise.
Makes good trouble.
This
is the struggle of a lifetime. Make good trouble. This is the struggle of a lifetime. And make good trouble. This is the struggle of a lifetime. And make good trouble.
So you tell us to wait. You tell us to be patient. We cannot wait. We cannot be patient. We want our freedom and we want it now.
During the service, you can donate to the church via the Square website. The link will be posted in the chat box, and you can click on it anytime to make a donation. The total amount given each Sunday is divided between our church and the Change for Change recipient. For January and February, this is Mental Health America. Outside of services, pledge and other donations could be made on our homepage. Just click on the Give tab at the upper right corner of the page. And of course, you can mail us your check. Now enjoy our offertory by Richard Mannix.
would like to invite you into a time of reflection, meditation, a time when we can open up our minds and our hearts and our spirits to the wonder that is in life and in love. So I invite you to take a few deep breaths, a few deep cleansing breaths, and maybe roll your shoulders back and kind of swiggle around and get all of those pieces relaxed, and scratch the itch that kind of is there, and push the hair out of your eyes if you need to. And just focus on our breath for a few moments, noticing the rising and the falling of our bodies as it expands to welcome in life-giving oxygen, and then closing again as we let out that which we no longer need. I invite you to notice what it is that you are sitting or standing or lying upon, and how it is supporting you. And allow yourself to kind of sink into it. And I'm going to read a poem by Mary Oliver, Starlings in Winter. I'm going to read it 3 times. And in these 3 times, I hope you find something that speaks to you, an image that delights you. I've been told that some people don't see images from words. And if that is the case, I just invite you to let the words wash over you and to find whatever meaning is there for you. And to continue relaxing, moving into our inner beings, focusing on our breath, pushing away the distractions of the day, of our environment, of our mind. Allow yourself to be present to yourself, to this moment. Starlings in Winter by Mary Oliver. Chunky and noisy, but with stars in their black feathers, they spring from the telephone wire, and instantly they are acrobats in the freezing wind. And now in the theater of air, they swing over buildings, dipping and rising. They float like one stippled star that opens, becomes for a moment fragmented, then closes again. And you watch and you try, but you simply can't imagine how they do it. With no articulated instruction, no pause, only the silent confirmation that they are this notable thing, this wheel of many parts that can rise and spin over and over again, full of gorgeous life. Ah, world, what lessons you prepare for us, even in the leafless winter, even in the ashy city. I am thinking now of grief and getting past it. I feel my boots trying to leave the ground. I feel my heart pumping hard. I want to think again of dangerous and noble things. I want to be light and frolicsome. I want to be improbably beautiful and afraid of nothing, as though I had wings. Now let us be in silence for a few moments. And we'll listen to these words once again by Mary Oliver, Starlings in Winter. Chunky and noisy, but with stars in their black feathers. They spring from the telephone wire and instantly they are acrobats in the freezing wind. And now in the theater of air, they swing over buildings, dipping and rising. They float like one stippled star that opens, becomes for a moment fragmented and then closes again. And you watch, and you try, but you simply can't imagine how they do it with no articulated instruction, no pause, only the silent confirmation that they are this notable thing, this wheel of many parts that can rise and spin over and over again, full of gorgeous life. Ah, world, what lessons you prepare for us, even in the leafless winter, even in the ashy city. I am thinking now of grief and of getting past it. I feel my boots trying to leave the ground. I feel my heart pumping hard. I want to think again of dangerous and noble things. I want to be light and frolicsome. I want to be improbably beautiful and afraid of nothing, as if I had wings. And a few moments of silence. And I will read the poem for the last time, and I invite you to find something new or to go deeper with what it is you have already found delight in. Chunky and noisy, but with stars in their black feathers, they spring from telephone wire and instantly they are acrobats in the freezing rain. And now in the theater of air, they swing over buildings, dipping and rising. They float like one stippled star that opens, becomes for a moment fragmented and then closes again. And you watch and you try, but you simply can't imagine how they do it with no articulated instruction. No pause, only the silent confirmation that they are this notable thing, this wheel of many parts that can rise and spin over and over again, full of gorgeous life. Ah, world, what lessons you prepare for us, even in the leafless winter, even in the ashy city. I am thinking now of grief and of getting past it. I feel my boots trying to leave the ground. I feel my heart pumping hard. I want to think again of dangerous and noble things. I want to be light and frolicsome. I want to be improbably beautiful and afraid of nothing, as though I had wings. And I invite you into a few more seconds, a few more moments of silence, and then we will move on. Amen. And let's just take another deep breath and wiggle our hands and our arms and settle in. The power of resilience. I am beautifully broken, perfectly imperfect, beautiful in my flaws. Altogether, I am a beautiful disaster. That was the beginning of this week's Braver, Wiser, that author of that little piece, Unknown, and I will continue on with the rest. It is written by Paula Gribble. If you're not familiar with Braver, Wiser, you can find it on the UUA website, and I can send it out in a link, and it's a weekly little newsletter that someone in the UUA world, a minister or a layperson, has written. And it's in the form of a little saying and then a reflection and a prayer at the end. And this is this week's. I am broken. We are all broken. Now stay with me. In meteorology, the term broken refers to the sky being more than half, but not totally, covered by clouds. When I was a child, life was especially challenging. I suffered abuse, many kinds. I was poor and sometimes hungry. I was broken. I am not the only one. All of us sit with our own struggles, hard times, pains, and losses. You are broken. It may be a natural response to hide this brokenness. You, like me, may have avoided certain topics with people, so you didn't have to talk about a painful time. You may have tried to hide the things you don't like about yourself. Let's return to that meteorological definition. Being more than half, but not totally covered by clouds. Have you ever been outside on a cloudy day and then light shines through the clouds? And it's particularly beautiful because it's coming through all the clouds around it. Sunny days are great, but there's something special about the light coming through the clouds on a broken day. Something graceful. I offer to you that you do not have to feel like a cracked and flawed plate you drop in the kitchen, the one that will never quite work right. Instead, the things that have broken you also make you beautiful, special, graceful. I'm not saying that painful and challenging things are okay. They're not. But I would not be the person today if I had not gone through those things. My broken is what makes me who I am today. And you would not be the person you are without your brokenness. Your special, beautiful, and graceful light couldn't shine through without the clouds surrounding you. Beautiful creations born out of brokenness. We have to take these parts of ourselves and allow them to be broken, and from these broken pieces create something new, something beautiful, something special, something born out of your brokenness, something broken that is also perfect. That's the end. You know, we've been in this pandemic for almost a full year now. I remember last year at this time, I was starting to hear rumblings, and I was rushing around to all the drugstores, buying up hand sanitizer and disinfectant wipes for the church. I stopped shaking hands at the end of the service, realizing I could be spreading the COVID germs as I shook hands down the line. And so I invited you into elbow bumping, and I refused hugs. How I long for a hug now. But look how far we have come from my first feeble attempts on my own to do something online to keep us together. I remember I cried big tears when Austin Nelson and Alice Pauley, our communications experts, reached out to me and asked me how they could help with putting the services together. I was so relieved to know that I was not in this alone and that we would get through it together. I had no concept at that time this pandemic would still, a year later, be keeping us apart. Hopefully, we perhaps can begin to see a faint light at the end of this very long tunnel that we're still in for a long time, I think. It will take some time, and I don't think our gatherings will look exactly the same as they did before the pandemic. I say this because we have learned so much, and we know we need to be better, to do better, to be more inclusive and more caring of those whose needs were not being met before COVID-19. There are a few things about us as humans, and this congregation in particular, that this pandemic has illuminated. The word resilience comes to mind in a big way. We are a people full of resilience. The reading spoke to that. Our system of connecting and caring for one another in joy and sorrow became unavailable to us or broken. And we, like other UU congregations and other congregations and other denominations, carried on and figured things out. And we went back to the drawing board over and over again and tried some new things and let some things go, and we just kept getting better. This is from a 2017 article in Forbes magazine, and it's discussing Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant's book, Option B, Facing Adversity, Building Resilience, and Finding Joy. This is an article by Frances Bridges, kind of talking about this book, and there's 5 things that in this article that can teach us about building resilience. And I'd like to talk to you briefly about each of those 5 things, how we can become powerfully resilient. So the first one is personalization, pervasiveness, and permanence. Seeds of resilience are planted when we process negative emotions and events, and there are 3 things that can keep us from building resilience. The first one, that the idea that we might be at fault. The second, the belief that the event or thing will affect every aspect of our lives. And the third, that the trauma, loss, or event will last forever. Permanence. Thinking about these 3 P's in relation to our congregational life, well, I don't think anyone thought this pandemic was their fault. Of course not. It was an unseen force that happened to us. We didn't really have any control except in our response to it. And we did a really good job with that. Building resilience as a congregation began when we realized that we were not going to be able to do some things together, not in the way we wished. But at least we could visit one another, worship together, hear and see each other, and carry on with the business of the church. The third, thinking it will last forever. Well, it sure has seemed forever at times, but now so many have had at least one vaccination some with both. I've had both my vaccinations, and I look forward to being able to see some of you visit with people more in person. We can see now that this is not going to last forever. However, we can see that we will be forever changed by this experience. Congregational life won't go back to exactly the same old. But because we have built up so much resilience, I know that the congregation will be able to adapt to the new, whatever normal is, quite quickly. The second way people and groups, they say, build resistance or resilience is by kicking the elephant out of the room. Sandberg talks about how after her husband's death, she felt so lonely and was even more isolated because people wouldn't speak of it. It's okay and desired to name the elephant in the room. We're sick of this pandemic. I sure am. We're isolated. We can't go on road trips, which is like one of my favorite things, or have dinner parties, or have tea together. It's okay to name these things and grieve the loss, and to share our feelings about it all. Sharing our feelings about the pandemic and other losses and triumphs in our lives builds up our resilience. We have to name the things that are in our lives. If we don't practice speaking our truth, resilience will atrophy. Sandberg and Grant state that there is a lot of evidence that speaking about traumatic events improves mental and physical health, helps people understand their own emotions, and helps them feel understood by others. I would like to say that I dearly miss being with you all in person. I really miss being at the pulpit with your faces responding to what I'm saying and the odd amen coming out. But I'm okay. And I'm sad about the things we've had to give up. What about you? What are you sad about? The flip side of that coin is that because of this pandemic, my health has improved greatly. So I guess what I'm saying is that there are positive things that this pandemic has brought to each of us in some way. And it's hard to acknowledge that, I think, and speak it, because we might feel guilty about it. But anyway, I haven't been in a restaurant or eaten any restaurant food for a year. And I can't even begin to tell you how much better I feel and the changes that have occurred within my body because of it. Not that there's anything wrong with restaurant food. That's not what I mean. I was getting cross-contaminated and I didn't realize it, because I'm celiac. And so there's always a little bit of gluten in your food in a restaurant. And I thought that I was eating safely, and I obviously wasn't, because things have transpired that I had no idea. For example, the ridges on my nails are going away. I can cite a lot of other things, but that would be boring. There have also been other benefits to me because of the pandemic. And like I say, it's hard to talk about this because so many people have died, and while others have lingering effects of COVID-19. But speaking of them helps us build resilience. We can say, then, that even when things are bad, there are always good things to celebrate. There is power in that statement, the power of resilience. The third thing Sandberg and Grant talk about is self-confidence and self-compassion. Have you ever found yourself in over your head, wondering how you're going to get through? And then you did. These types of experiences build self-confidence, and then remembering these successes when times are tough reminds us that we have the power to get through some tough situations. This does not mean, however, that when people are being treated unfairly or unjustly, we should think then that they should just be able to get through it. That's not what I mean by any long stretch of the imagination. We must continue the fight against oppression in all of its forms and unequal justice. We must fight unequal justice. What Sandberg and Adams are talking about, when you find yourself in a tough situation, remember you got through similar things. And be gentle with yourself and ask for help when you need to. You don't have to be perfect. Just take things one step at a time, one turn at a time, one paper at a time, one dish at a time, one task at a time. You are not a machine, and you are capable. As far as our congregation is concerned, I think we can see how we found ourselves behind the 8 ball a little less than a year ago. And we took it slow. We tried some things, then we tried others, created some new systems, and now we have meetings, worship. We've had a fun and amazing stewardship, that coffee house, that art fair was improvised, and now the silent auction is being planned, and it's going to be really great. Imagine, we're doing the goods and services auction online. Thank you, Nicole. Nicole McCabe has been instrumental in that. So with each hurdle, each turn, you, as a congregation, are building resilience. It will be interesting to see what this learning is preparing you for in the future. The fourth thing Sandberg and Grant talk about is this: contribute. It is important to count our blessings, to find the things that we are grateful for, but that doesn't build resilience. If we wish to build resilience, we need to contribute. Contributing builds our confidence. We discover we can do things. We realize that we're making a difference. So many are contributing these days to making UUCTC a vibrant community. Also, folks are contributing in many other ways besides through the church. To build resilience, we need to feel useful and needed. So perhaps at the end of the day, like in the evenings, think about or write down the things that you have done well during the day. Ask yourself, what went well? What did I learn? How did I contribute? Thinking about and remembering and taking a moment to reflect on these things will build resilience, making yourself and your community stronger. The last thing is this: pay attention to joy. When we have suffered a loss, had a global pandemic stop us from doing the things we love, or any of the other thousands of things that can happen to us, it is very important to allow ourselves to still feel joy. We cannot maintain sadness or grief or worry very long. It harms us. We need to lay things down and dance and sing and laugh and love. There is still so much joy that can be had even in this time of being apart. I encourage us all of you and me, to laugh heartily every day, to do the things that we love, to play games with our kids or our grandkids or our partners or our friends, even if it's a Zoom game. Laughter and joy in the midst of pain loss, and pandemics builds up our resilience. It makes us realize we can withstand the storm no matter what. Sandberg and Grant write, rather than waiting until we're happy to enjoy the small things, go and do the small things that make us happy. When you seize more and more moments of happiness, you find that they give you strength. In other words, happiness builds resilience in a powerful way. I love the imagery at the Braver, Wiser reading of the broken clouds. One of my favorite things in the world is a sun shower. You know what I mean by a sun shower? It's when it's raining on you if you're outside, but the clouds have broken up and the sun is also shining on you. If I notice a sun shower is happening, I sometimes run outside and experience it. It fills me with such joy. Life is like that. There is always sun, and there's always clouds. There's rain, there's snow, there's sleet, and if we are resilient, we can find the joy in all of it. All of these things creates in us the power of resilience. The Braver, Wiser segment this week ended with the prayer. They all do. They end with a little prayer. And I will end with the prayer from the Braver, Wiser. Invite you into a moment of prayer. Spirit of life and love, let us see ourselves with grace, knowing that we are flawed, yet also knowing that we are something beautiful, born of brokenness, broken and perfect. So may it be. Amen.
Good morning. This song is titled Whoa Ya Ya. It's a little bit funky, so I took some liberties with it, but I hope you enjoy. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know it's Him, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know with Him, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. 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 Oh yeah, yeah.
We extinguish this chalice with words by Reverend Wayne B. Arneson. Let me try that again. We extinguish this chalice with words by Reverend Wayne B. Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Now please join us in 5 minutes for coffee and conversation, hosted by Kirsten Reynolds.
And as we come to the end of our service, I would like to thank everyone that contributed to and offered their talents to this service. Thank you for being here as well, for attending, and I'm so glad we had this chance to be together and find meaning in our day and our week, and I hope you found something that nourished you, that will buoy you up until we can meet again. And now I offer you these words of benediction. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break and all things can be mended, but not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go and love intentionally, love extravagantly, love unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. Go in peace, gentle people, go in peace. And before we go, I invite you to give yourself a hug. Nice tight hug, and offer it to the world. Amen.